The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited Earth's moon like a silent guardian. Inside its metal walls, machines hummed quietly as they listened to the endless darkness between stars. Most days brought nothing but cosmic static and the whispers of distant suns. But today was different. Lieutenant Dae-Yun Park sat at her console, watching waves of data flow across her screen. She had been working the night shift for 3 years, and nothing exciting ever happened. The young officer yawned and reached for her coffee when suddenly her computer started beeping frantically. "What the hell?" Da-Un muttered, leaning forward. The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system over 1,000 light-years away. But this was not natural radio noise from a star or planet. This was artificial. This was a message. Da-Un's hands flew over her keyboard as she tried to clean up the signal. Her heart pounded as strange symbols appeared on her screen. These were not human letters or numbers. This was alien writing. "Commander Lee!" she called out. "You need to see this. Right now!" Woo-Jin Lee rushed over from his office. He was a tall man with gray hair who had seen 30 years of military service. Nothing usually surprised him anymore. But when he saw Da-Un's screen, his mouth fell open. "Is that what I think it is?" Woo-Jin asked quietly. "Yes, sir. It's a transmission. From aliens, and they're using our universal translator protocols." The message was broken and full of static, but they could understand parts of it. Words like help, dying, and Deathworlders came through clearly. Da-Un felt chills run down her spine. Someone out there knew about Earth. Within an hour, Admiral Han-Sol Kim arrived at the station. He was the head of Earth's Space Defense Forces, a serious man who never smiled. But today his usually calm face showed worry. "Play it again," Han-Sol ordered. The alien voice filled the room. It sounded desperate and afraid. "Seeking the Death World warriors. Our people are dying. The Kreks come for us all. Please, legendary fighters of Terra, help us." "How do they know about us?" Han-Sol asked. Woo-Jin pulled up star charts on the main screen. "Sir, we've been sending radio signals into space for over 400 years. Someone has been listening." Da-Yun worked to improve the signal quality. After several hours, they had a clearer message. The aliens called themselves the Velathi. They were herbivores, peaceful plant-eaters who had never known war. But now they faced extinction. The enemy was called the Kreks Dominion. According to the message, the Kreks believed they were the superior race in the galaxy. They had been conquering other worlds for thousands of years. Any species they found was either enslaved or killed. "The Velathi have lost 17 of their colony worlds," Woo-Jin reported. "They're down to their home planet and 3 space stations. The Kreks fleet is coming for them." Han-Sol stared at the star map. Earth was far from the battle, safe in its own corner of space. Humans had always stayed close to home, building colonies only in nearby systems. They had no reason to get involved in an alien war. But the Velathi message was not just asking for help. It was begging. The alien voice spoke of children hiding in caves while their cities burned. They talked about their art and music and poetry that would be lost forever if the Kreks won. "Why do they call us Deathworlders?" Da-Un asked. Woo-Jin had been researching that question. "I think it's because Earth is a dangerous planet compared to most worlds with life. We have predators, natural disasters, diseases, and extreme weather. Most intelligent species probably evolved on safer worlds. So they think we're tough because we survived on Earth? More than tough. They think we're warriors." The message mentions legends of the Terra fighters who fear nothing. Han-Sol was quiet for a long time. He had spent his whole career defending Earth and its colonies, but this was different. This was about defending innocent people he had never met, on worlds he had never seen. Over the next week, more messages arrived from the Velathi. Each one was weaker than the last as their transmitters were destroyed in Kreks attacks. The aliens sent pictures of their world, beautiful forests and crystal cities that were now burning ruins. The Velathi also sent information about their enemies. The Kreks were tall, gray-skinned humanoids who wore black armor. They fought with robots and automated ships, preferring to kill from a distance. They had never faced an enemy willing to fight back with desperate courage. Han-Sol called a meeting of Earth's military leaders. The conference room was full of admirals and generals, all arguing about what to do. "It's not our fight," said General Kim Tae-ho. "We barely have enough ships to defend our own worlds. But if we don't help, the Kreks might come for us next," argued Admiral So-young Choi. "They're expanding in our direction." "The Valathi are offering us their technology in exchange for help," Woo Jin added. "Their ships are faster than ours." Han Sol listened to all the arguments, but he kept thinking about the desperate voice in those alien messages. He thought about the Valathi children hiding underground while their world died above them. Finally, he stood up. The room went quiet. "I've made my decision," Han Sol said. "We're going to help them." "Sir, with respect, we don't have enough ships," General Tae-ho protested. "Then we'll build more. We'll take volunteers from every colony. We'll strip the orbital defenses if we have to." Han Sol's voice was firm. 17 species have already died because no one helped them. The Valathi won't be the 18th. Dayun felt proud to be human as she watched the Admiral speak. They could have stayed safe on Earth, protected by distance and ignorance, but that was not who they were. Humans had always fought for those who could not fight for themselves. "How long do the Valathi have?" Han Sol asked. Woo Jin checked the latest message. 3 months, maybe 4. After that, their last defenses will fall. Then we have 3 months to cross 1,000 light years and build a fleet strong enough to fight an empire. Han Sol looked around the room. "Who's with me?" Every hand in the room went up. That night, Da-un watched from the observation deck as emergency construction began on the military shipyards. Sparks flew from welding torches as workers labored around the clock. New ships were taking shape, larger and more powerful than any Earth had built before. The news of the alien distress call spread across Earth and its colonies. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Young men and women lined up for hours, all wanting to join the mission to save the Valathi. Da-un had volunteered too. She would be the communications officer on the fleet's lead ship. Her job would be to maintain contact with the Valathi and coordinate the human response. As she watched the construction, Da-un thought about what they were attempting. They were going to travel farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. They would fight enemies they had never seen, using weapons they were still building, but the Valathi were counting on them. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, alien children were hiding in caves, hoping that the legendary Deathworlders would come to save them. Da-un smiled. They would not be disappointed. Humans were coming, and they were bringing the largest war fleet Earth had ever built. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of the Deathworlder Armada was about to begin. The Mars shipyards had never seen activity like this. Massive construction frames stretched across the red planet's orbit, each one building a new warship for humanity's greatest military expedition. Sparks flew 24 hours a day as workers raced against time to prepare the Deathworlder Armada. Fleet Admiral So-young Choi stood on the command deck of the nearly completed flagship, watching hundreds of smaller vessels take shape around her. She had been chosen to lead the Armada because of her experience in deep space operations. But nothing had prepared her for this challenge. "Admiral, the Busan's Wrath will be ready for trials in 2 weeks," reported Chief Engineer Tae-ho Kang. The massive dreadnought was the largest warship humans had ever built, stretching over 2 kilometers from bow to stern. "What about the carrier groups?" So-young asked. "The Incheon Rising and Seoul's Pride are on schedule. We'll have 4 full carrier groups, each with 60 fighters." So-young nodded, but she looked worried. Building the ships was only part of the challenge. They also needed crews brave enough to travel into unknown space and fight an alien empire. Captain Jinwoo Nam was handling recruitment across Earth's colonies. He had set up centers on every inhabited world, looking for volunteers with military experience. The response had amazed everyone. "We have 3 times more volunteers than we need," Jinwoo reported during the daily briefing. "People are coming from mining stations, research outposts, even civilian cargo haulers." "What kind of people?" So-young asked. "All kinds. Former military, of course, but also engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers. One group of volunteers came from a deep space mining operation. They've been working in dangerous conditions for years and want to help save the Valathi." So-young smiled. This was what made humans special. When people needed help, humans stepped forward, even if it meant risking their lives. But the volunteers needed training. The Armada would face enemies using technology humans had never seen. Lieutenant Hai-Rim Yang was leading the effort to understand their alien opponents. Hai-Rim worked in a secure laboratory deep inside the Mars orbital station. Her team studied every piece of information the Velothi had sent about the Krex Dominion. The aliens had provided detailed scans of Krex ships, weapons, and battle tactics. The Krex rely heavily on automation, Hai-Rim explained to a group of ship captains. They use robot fighters and computer-controlled weapons. Their crews stay far from direct combat. That could be an advantage for us, said Captain Mijin Seo of the science vessel Daegu Explorer. Humans are good at adapting when plans go wrong. Computers are not. Exactly, Hai-Rim agreed. The Krex have overwhelming firepower, but they're predictable. They follow standard tactics and don't improvise well. The Velothi had also provided technical data about their own ships. Their technology was more advanced than Earth's in some ways, particularly their faster-than-light drives. Chief Engineer Taeho Kang studied these designs carefully. Their engines could cut our travel time by 30%, Taeho reported, but we don't have time to rebuild our entire fleet. Can we modify our existing drives? So Young asked. I think so. We'll need to install Velothi components in our engine rooms. It's risky, but it might work. The technical challenges were enormous. Human ships used different power systems and computer networks than Velothi vessels. Making the two technologies work together required constant experimentation. Meanwhile, the Armada's medical staff prepared for treating alien casualties. Chief Medical Officer Yoonji Lim had never worked on non-human patients before, but she was determined to be ready. We'll be fighting alongside the Velothi, Yoonji explained to her team. If their people are wounded, we need to help them. We're also setting up facilities to treat Krex prisoners humanely. Why help enemy prisoners? Asked one young medic. Because that's what humans do, Yoonji replied. We don't abandon anyone who needs medical help, even our enemies. As construction continued, the Armada took shape. The flagship, Terra's Hammer, would carry Admiral So Young and the fleet command staff. The massive dreadnought Busan's Wrath provided heavy firepower. 4 carrier groups would launch fighter attacks against enemy ships. Dozens of smaller vessels filled out the fleet. Destroyers like the Gwangju Defender and Daejeon Strike would escort the larger ships. Frigates would hunt enemy submarines in space. Support vessels carried supplies, medical equipment, and repair facilities. But the most important ships might be the smallest ones. Fast attack craft like the Ulsan Dart and Pohang Lightning were designed for hit-and-run missions. These ships could get close to enemy vessels and strike with precision weapons. Captain Chang Min-yu commanded one of the fighter squadrons. He had been a test pilot before volunteering for the mission. Now he trained other pilots to fight in the vacuum of space against alien opponents. Remember, the Krex have never faced human tactics, Chang Min told his pilots during a briefing. They expect orderly formations and predictable attack patterns. We're going to give them chaos. The human fighters were smaller and more maneuverable than Krex interceptors. They could change direction quickly and attack from unexpected angles. Chang Min planned to use these advantages to confuse and overwhelm the enemy. As the departure date approached, final preparations intensified. Major Subin Kwan led special forces teams that would board enemy ships during battle. Her soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat, learning to fight in the cramped corridors of alien vessels. Boarding actions will be crucial, Subin explained to Admiral So Young. Krex ships are designed around automation. If we can get troops inside, we can disable their computer systems. How many boarding teams do we have? 200 divided into 20 squads. Each team specializes in different types of targets. We can hit command ships, supply vessels, or manufacturing platforms. The Velothi continued sending updates about their desperate situation. Each message was weaker than the last, as more of their transmitters were destroyed. The alien voices spoke of cities falling and populations fleeing to underground shelters, but they also sent encouragement to the human fleet. Velothi engineers provided updated technical specifications for their technology. Velothi military advisors shared intelligence about Krex weaknesses they had discovered. The humans inspire hope throughout our remaining worlds, one Velothi message said. Our children ask when the Deathworlders will arrive to save them. Da-Yun Park had been promoted to commander and assigned as the fleet's chief communications officer. She worked on the flagship's bridge, coordinating messages between hundreds of ships, but she also maintained contact with the Velothi. "How much longer?" the alien voices asked in their latest transmission. 2 weeks, Da-Un replied. "The Armada launches in 2 weeks." As construction entered its final phase, Admiral So Young conducted inspections of the fleet. She visited every major vessel, talking to crews and checking equipment. What she saw gave her confidence. The human volunteers were ready. They had trained hard and worked together as a team. Veterans taught newcomers how to operate complex equipment. Engineers solved technical problems that should have taken months. Most importantly, every person in the Armada understood why they were making this journey. They were not conquering or seeking profit. They were answering a call for help from desperate aliens who had nowhere else to turn. On the final day before departure, So Young gathered the fleet's senior officers in the flagship's conference room. Captains attended in person while others joined by video link from their ships throughout the solar system. "Tomorrow we begin humanity's longest journey," So Young told them. "We're traveling to a star system none of us have seen, to fight enemies we've never faced, to save people we've never met." She looked around the room at the faces of her captains. They came from different colonies and backgrounds, but they all shared the same determination. "Some people have asked me why we're doing this," So Young continued. "Why risk human lives for aliens? The answer is simple. Because it's the right thing to do. Because 17 species have already died while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Because the Velothi asked for our help, and humans don't abandon people who need us." The next morning, Earth's orbital space buzzed with activity as the Deathworlders Armada prepared for departure. Families gathered at observation stations to watch their loved ones leave. News crews broadcast the historic moment to every human world. Admiral So Young stood on the flagship's bridge as final preparations were completed. Around her, hundreds of warships hung in space like a steel constellation. Each ship carried volunteers who had left their homes to save strangers. "All vessels report ready for departure," Commander Da-Un announced. So Young took a deep breath. In a few moments, the largest human fleet ever assembled would disappear into the darkness between stars. Many of these brave people might never see Earth again. "Signal the fleet," So Young ordered. "All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace. Destination, Velothi space. Mission, save a dying civilization." The Armada's engines ignited simultaneously, creating a brilliant display of light against the black of space. One by one, the ships vanished into hyperspace, beginning their journey across the void. Behind them, Earth continued its orbit around the sun, but the planet was no longer home to an isolated species. Humanity had taken its first step toward becoming the galaxy's PR. Space was different this far from Earth. Captain Mi-Jin Seo stared through the viewport of the Daegu Explorer at stars she had never seen before. Her science vessel traveled at the front of the Deathworlders Armada, mapping the route to Velothi space. The fleet had been traveling for 6 weeks. Every day took them deeper into uncharted territory, farther from the safety of human space. Mi-Jin's job was to scan each system for dangers before the main fleet arrived. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, reported her sensor officer. "It's artificial, not natural." Mi-Jin hurried to the sensor station. On the screen was a metallic object drifting in space near a dead planet. It was clearly made by intelligent beings, but it was old and damaged. "Signal Admiral So Young," Mi-Jin ordered. "We found something." Within an hour, the flagship Terra's Hammer arrived with an escort of destroyers. Admiral So Young came aboard the science ship to examine Mi-Jin's discovery personally. "It's a beacon of some kind," Mi-Jin explained as they studied the sensor data. "The design doesn't match Velothi or Krek's technology." "How old is it?" "Maybe 1,000 years. It's barely functional, but we're getting some data from its memory banks." The beacon contained fragments of information about a species called the Korthani. They had been artists and musicians who created beautiful sculptures from crystallized starlight. The beacon was all that remained of their civilization. "The Kreks?" So Young asked quietly. Mi-Jin nodded. "The beacon's final entries describe gray, ships with black weapons attacking their worlds. The Korthani tried to surrender, but the Kreks killed them anyway." Admiral So Young felt anger building in her chest. The Korthani had been peaceful, like the Velothi, but the Krex had destroyed them simply because they existed. As the Armada continued its journey, they found more evidence of the Krex's path of destruction. Dead worlds orbited silent stars. Automated distress beacons repeated messages in languages no one would ever speak again. Ancient ruins showed where cities had once stood before orbital bombardment turned them to glass. 17 species, Commander, Daeyeon Park whispered as she catalogued each discovery. Just like the Velothi said. The discovery that disturbed everyone most was found by Lieutenant Jae-min Hong aboard the destroyer Suwon Strike. His ship was investigating an asteroid field when sensors detected artificial structures hidden among the rocks. They're escape pods, Jaemin reported, thousands of them, all empty. The pods were made by a species called the Yamalri. According to the pod's computers, the Yamalri had loaded their children into these emergency craft when the Krex attacked their home world. The pods were programmed to find safe planets where the young Yamalri could rebuild their civilization. But the pods had been in space for 800 years. Their life support systems had failed long ago. The Yamalri children had died alone in the dark, waiting for rescue that never came. News of these discoveries spread through the human fleet. Soldiers who had joined for adventure now understood the true horror of what they faced. The Krex were not just conquerors. They were destroyers who eliminated entire species for no reason except hatred. But the discoveries also strengthened human resolve. Commander Hyun-Soo Bae addressed his crew aboard the carrier Soul's Pride after they found another dead world. "This is why we're here," Hyun-Soo told them. "The galaxy has been suffering under Krex tyranny for thousands of years. No one was strong enough to stop them, but we are." The fleet's mood improved when they received updated messages from the Velothi. The aliens were still alive, still fighting. They had managed to evacuate most of their children to hidden shelters on their moon. But the Krex were closing in. "We detect your ships approaching," the latest Velothi message said. "The legendary Deathworlders come at last. Our hope is renewed." "Admiral," So Young smiled as she listened to the transmission. The Velothi had been waiting for 2 months, hiding in underground cities while their world burned above them. But they had not given up, because they knew humans were coming. The Armada was 2 weeks from Velothi space when they encountered their first Krex patrol. Commander Hyun-Soo Bae was leading a scouting mission with 3 destroyers when his sensors detected alien ships near a gas giant. The vessels were sleek and gray, exactly matching Velothi descriptions of Krex warships. 6 enemy contacts, reported his tactical officer. They haven't seen us yet. Hyun-Soo studied his options. The Krex ships were more advanced than his destroyers, but they were outnumbered. This might be humanity's only chance to study Krex. Combat tactics before the main battle. Signal the fleet. Tell Admiral So Young we're engaging the enemy. The human destroyers Gwangju Defender, Ulsan Dart, and Pohang Lightning attacked from 3 directions simultaneously. The Krex were caught completely off guard. Their sensors had been focused on the gas giant, collecting fuel for their ships. Enemy vessels launching automated fighters, Hyun-Soo's tactical officer reported. The Krex response was exactly what Lieutenant Hai Rim Yang had predicted. Swarms of robot fighters poured from the alien ships, following programmed attack patterns. The robots were fast and well-armed, but they were also predictable. "All ships, random evasive maneuvers," Hyun-Soo ordered. "Don't give them a pattern to follow." Human ships darted and weaved through space in ways no computer could predict. The Krex robots tried to follow, but human pilots constantly changed direction and speed. Robot missiles missed their targets as human ships performed impossible maneuvers. The Ulsan Dart closed to point-blank range with a Krex cruiser and fired its main guns directly into the alien ship's hull. The Krex had never faced such an aggressive attack. Their defensive systems were designed for long-range combat, not close-quarters fighting. "They're trying to retreat," reported the Pohang Lightning. "Not today," Hyun-Soo replied grimly. "All ships pursue and destroy." The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, all 6 Krex ships were destroyed or disabled. The human destroyers had suffered damage, but no lives were lost. Most importantly, they had captured a Krex officer whose escape pod had been picked up by the Gwangju Defender. This was the first living Krex anyone had ever seen. The alien was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. It wore a sleek black uniform with symbols that probably indicated rank. When brought before Commander Hyun-soo, the Krex officer spoke in accented but understandable English. "You are the Deathworld primitives," the Krex said. Its voice was cold and emotionless. "Your presence here violates Dominion space." "We're here to help the Velathi," Hyun-soo replied. "Leave them alone and we'll leave you alone." The Krex officer made a sound that might have been laughter. "Impossible. Inferior species cannot be permitted to exist. The Dominion will cleanse this galaxy of contamination, including humans, especially humans. Your species shows dangerous tendencies toward violence and unpredictability. You must be eliminated before you spread." Hyun-soo felt a chill. The Krex were not just attacking the Velathi. They saw humans as a threat to their entire empire. This war would not end until one side was completely destroyed. Chief Medical Officer Yoon-ji Lim examined the captured Krex with scientific curiosity. The alien was physically healthy but psychologically disturbing. It showed no emotion, no empathy, no understanding of why other species deserve to live. "It's like talking to a computer," Yoon-ji reported to Admiral So-young. "The Krex seem to have eliminated all emotion from their thinking. They make decisions based purely on logic, but their logic is flawed." "How so?" "They believe that only they have the right to exist. Everything else is either a resource to be consumed or a threat to be eliminated. They can't understand concepts like cooperation or mercy." The interrogation of the Krex prisoner revealed important tactical information. The Dominion had been expanding for thousands of years, but they had never faced serious resistance. Their tactics were designed for fighting weaker opponents who would eventually surrender. "They've never fought anyone willing to sacrifice everything for victory," Hyun-soo observed. "That might be our advantage." News of the first human victory spread through the Armada, boosting morale. They had faced Krex ships and won. The enemy was not invincible, but the victory also brought sobering news. The captured Krex revealed that a massive Dominion fleet was already besieging the Velathi homeworld. Hundreds of warships surrounded the planet, slowly destroying its defenses. "We estimate 2 weeks before the final assault," the Krex prisoner said without emotion. "The Velathi contamination will be eliminated. Your arrival will only delay the inevitable." Admiral So-young increased the fleet's speed, pushing the engines to their limits. They had to reach Velathi space before it was too late. But she also began planning for the battle ahead. The human armada was outnumbered 10-1. They would be fighting in an unfamiliar star system against enemies who knew the terrain. By all logical calculation, they should lose. But humans had never been purely logical. They fought with courage, creativity, and desperate determination. They protected the innocent even when it meant risking their own lives. Captain Chang-min Yu practiced attack runs with his fighter squadrons, preparing for the battle ahead. His pilots were nervous but determined. They knew they were humanity's only hope of saving the Velathi. "Remember," Chang-min told them, "we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species the Krex have." The sight that greeted the Deathworlders Armada made every human heart burn with anger. The beautiful blue-green world of Velathos hung in space like a wounded jewel, its surface scarred by orbital bombardment. Hundreds of Krex warships surrounded the planet in a perfect siege formation. Admiral So-young Choi stood on the bridge of the flagship Terra's Hammer, watching the tactical display with growing fury. The Krex fleet was massive, easily 10 times larger than her own force. Sleek gray. Vessels arranged in geometric patterns, methodically destroying everything that made Velathos beautiful. "Status report," So-young ordered. Commander Da-un Park worked frantically at her communications station. "The Velathi are still alive, Admiral. They're transmitting from underground cities, but their surface defenses are almost gone." "How long do they have?" "Days, maybe hours. The Krex are preparing for a final assault." So-young studied the enemy formation. The Krex ships moved in perfect coordination, like a machine designed for destruction. Their weapons fired in timed volleys, gradually wearing down the planet's remaining shields, but their formation also revealed something important. The Krex were so confident of victory that they had not bothered with defensive positions. They never expected anyone to challenge them. "Signal Captain Junho Ryu," So-young ordered. Initiate attack plan Chaos. Jun-Ho commanded the fast attack group, 20 small ships designed for hit-and-run missions. His vessels were the smallest in the Armada, but they were also the fastest and most maneuverable. Understood, Admiral. Beginning attack run. The human plan was simple and insane. Instead of fighting the Krex fleet directly, they would attack from multiple directions simultaneously. The goal was not to win a traditional space battle, but to create so much confusion that the enemy could not respond. Effectively, Jun-Ho's ships accelerated toward the Krex formation at maximum speed. They approached from the system's outer edge, where no enemy sensors were watching. The Krex had never learned to guard against surprise attacks because no one had ever dared attack them. Multiple contacts approaching from Sector 7, reported. A Krex sensor operator aboard the command ship Domination's Edge. Small vessels. Unknown configuration. Supreme War Master Thexvar studied the tactical display with mild interest. The approaching ships were tiny compared to his mighty fleet. Probably some desperate Velothi attempt at resistance. Deploy automated interceptors, Thexvar ordered. Eliminate the contamination. Swarms of robot fighters launched from the Krex ships, programmed to destroy the approaching human vessels. But as the robots closed in, the human ships did something completely unexpected. They split up. Captain Jun-Ho's formation scattered in 20 different directions, each ship following a random course at maximum speed. The robot interceptors tried to follow, but their targeting computers could not predict where the humans would go next. What are they doing? Thexvar demanded. His tactical officer had no answer. The human ships were not following any recognizable attack pattern. They darted through space like insects, impossible to target effectively. Then the real attack began. Major Subin Quan led the first boarding assault from her fast attack craft Soul Fury. Her ship accelerated toward a Krex supply vessel at ramming speed, but at the last second fired magnetic grapples that pulled them alongside the enemy hull. "Breach! Breach! Breach!" Subin shouted as her troops blasted through the Krex ship's airlock. The Krex crew had never experienced a boarding attack. Their ships were designed around automation, with minimal crew and no security forces. When human soldiers came, charging through their corridors, the aliens had no idea how to respond. Subin's team reached the ship's computer core in minutes. Sergeant Haewon Kim planted explosive charges while the others held off confused Krex defenders. When the charges detonated, the supply ship's automated systems went offline. Target neutralized, Subin reported. Moving to next objective, all. Across the Krex formation, similar attacks were taking place. Human boarding teams struck supply ships, communication vessels, and automated defense platforms. Each successful mission knocked out a piece of the enemy's carefully organized system. But the real chaos came from above. Captain Changmin Yu led 4 squadrons of human fighters in a diving attack through the Krex formation. His pilots had been studying enemy tactics for weeks, learning to exploit their weaknesses. "Remember, they expect us to attack their big ships," Chang Min told his pilots over the radio. "Instead, we go after their computers." Human fighters screamed through the Krex fleet at impossible speeds, targeting sensor arrays and communication dishes. The aliens tried to respond with their robot interceptors, but the humans were too fast and too unpredictable. Fighter pilot So-Jin Kim dove her craft between 2 Krex cruisers, using their own ships as cover while she destroyed a command antenna. Robot fighters fired at her, but their missiles struck their own ships instead. "These robots are stupid!" So-Jin laughed over the radio. "They can't tell friend from foe." The Krex formation began to fall apart as individual ships lost contact with their command structure. Without central coordination, the aliens could not maintain their perfect geometric patterns. Supreme War Master Thexvar watched his organized siege dissolve into chaos. His ships were firing at random targets. His robots were hitting his own vessels, and small human craft were somehow penetrating his defenses. "How is this possible?" Thexvar demanded. "They are primitives with inferior technology." His science officer studied the human attack patterns with growing confusion. "War Master, their tactics make no logical sense. They attack targets that provide no tactical advantage. They take risks that should result in their destruction." "Then why are they winning?" The science officer had no answer. Krex military doctrine was based on logical analysis and predictable outcomes. But humans did not follow logic. They followed something the Krex could not understand: courage. Admiral So Young watched the battle from her flagship, coordinating the attacks while keeping her main fleet hidden behind Valathos' largest moon. The initial assault was working better than she had hoped, but she knew the Kreks would adapt quickly. "Second wave, initiate attack," she ordered. Commander Hyun Soo Bae led the second assault with heavier ships. His destroyers and frigates emerged from behind the moon in a coordinated strike against the Kreks command vessels. This time, the humans were not running and hiding. They were fighting head-to-head. The Gwangju Defender engaged a Kreks battlecruiser in direct combat. The alien ship was larger and more heavily armed, but Hyun-Soo had learned something important from the first battle. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Take us in close." The human destroyer charged straight at the Kreks ship, absorbing massive damage, but closing to point-blank range. At that distance, the Kreks' long-range weapons became useless, while human guns could target weak points in the alien hull. "Fire everything!" Hyun-Soo shouted. The Gwangju Defender unleashed its entire arsenal into the Kreks battlecruiser's engineering section. Explosions rippled along the alien ship's hull as its power systems overloaded. Within minutes, the mighty warship was drifting helplessly in space. Similar battles raged throughout the system as human ships engaged Kreks vessels in close combat. The aliens had superior firepower, but humans had superior determination. Human crews fought damaged ships long after they should have surrendered. Human pilots made attack runs that no sane person would attempt. The turning point came when Major Subin Kwan led a desperate assault on the Kreks flagship itself. The Domination's Edge was a massive command ship, bristling with weapons and protected by multiple layers of shields. Subin's boarding team approached in captured Kreks shuttles, hoping to fool the enemy sensors. "Remember, we only need to hold the bridge for 10 minutes, Subin told her troops. "That's long enough to upload the virus." The human computer specialists had created a program designed to spread through Kreks networks and disable their automated systems. But someone had to physically access the flagship's main computer to install it. Subin's team fought their way through the ship's corridors, battling Kreks security forces in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The aliens were taller and stronger than humans, but they had never learned to fight at close range. Sergeant Haewon Kim led the charge into the flagship's command center. Supreme War Master Thexvar tried to stop him, but the human soldier was too fast and too determined. Haewon's combat knife found the alien commander's throat before Thexvar could draw his weapon. "Upload complete," reported the team's computer specialist. "Virus is spreading through their network." The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the Kreks fleet, automated systems began shutting down randomly. Ship weapons stopped firing. Robot fighters crashed into each other and communication networks failed, but the virus did more than disable Kreks technology. It also unlocked the ship's data banks, revealing the full scope of the Dominion's crimes. Commander Dae-Yoon Park watched in horror as the evidence poured in. The Kreks had destroyed not 17 species, but 73. Entire star systems had been sterilized of life. Billions of intelligent beings had been murdered simply because they existed. "Admiral," Da-Un reported with a shaking voice, "you need to see this. The Kreks have been committing genocide for over 10,000 years. So Young felt sick as she reviewed the data. The Dom. The news of humanity's victory at Valathos sent shockwaves through the Kreks dominion. For 10,000 years, no species had successfully challenged their military might. Now, a primitive race from an unknown world had destroyed an entire siege fleet. Supreme Overlord Vexmorth stood in the command chamber of the Dominion's capital ship, studying holographic displays that showed the scope of the disaster. The Domination's Edge was destroyed. Supreme War Master Thexvar was dead. Worse, the humans had captured complete records of Kreks operations. "How many ships did we lose?" Vexmorth asked his intelligence chief. "The entire Valathos siege fleet. Overlord, 400 vessels destroyed or captured. The humans also rescued the Velathi population." Vexmorth's gray skin darkened with rage. The Velathi should have been eliminated weeks ago. Instead, they were now under human protection, and their survival would encourage other species to resist. "What do we know about these Deathworlders?" The intelligence chief activated a display showing Earth's location. "They come from a Class 12, Death World in the Outer Spiral Arm. Our long-range scouts detected their radio emissions centuries ago, but we classified them as a pre-spaceflight species. Clearly, our classification was wrong. Yes, Overlord. They have advanced faster than any species in recorded history. Their technology is primitive but effective. More concerning is their tactical approach. Vexmorth studied recordings from the battle. Human ships moved in ways that made no logical sense. They took risks that should have resulted in their destruction. They fought with a ferocity that seemed to ignore their own survival. They are contaminated, Vexmorth declared. Their Deathworld origin has made them unstable and dangerous. They must be eliminated immediately. What are your orders, Overlord? Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will destroy their homeworld and end this threat before it can spread. The Krex Grand Fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in the galaxy. Over 2,000 warships gathered at the Dominion's primary naval base, preparing for humanity's destruction. The Armada included planet killers, massive vessels capable of sterilizing entire worlds. But Vexmorth was not content with simply destroying Earth. He wanted to make an example that would terrify any other species considering resistance. The humans will suffer, he told his fleet commanders. We will destroy their colonies first, one by one, while they watch helplessly. Only then will we eliminate their homeworld. Meanwhile, on Earth, Defense Coordinator Young Sik Park received Admiral So Young's urgent message about the Krex database. The evidence of galactic genocide shocked humanity's leadership into immediate action. 73 species, Young Sik reported to the Emergency Council. Billions of sentient beings murdered over 10,000 years. The Krex are not just conquerors. They are extermination machines. President Kim Hwa-young studied the holographic display, showing destroyed worlds throughout the galaxy. Each red dot represented a dead civilization, an extinct species that would never create art or music or poetry again. How long before they attack us? She asked. Our intelligence suggests they're already mobilizing their main fleet. We estimate 2 months before they reach Earth. What about our colonies? Young Sik's expression was grim. The Krex will probably attack them first. Standard doctrine would be to isolate Earth by destroying our outer settlements. Humanity faced its greatest crisis. The Deathworlder Armada was still near Velethos, too far away to defend Earth in time. The colonies were scattered across dozens of star systems, impossible to protect simultaneously. But humanity had learned something important from the first battle. The Krex could be beaten if they were denied their tactical advantages. Signal all colonies, President Kim ordered. Implement the Fortress Protocol immediately. The Fortress Protocol was humanity's desperate defense plan. Instead of trying to fight the Krex in space, human settlements would go underground. Entire populations would retreat to prepared bunkers, while automated defenses protected them from above. On Mars, colonial governor Seo Min-ho watched as millions of people evacuated to underground cities. The red planet's surface bristled with missile launchers and particle cannons, all controlled by artificial intelligence systems. If the Krex want our worlds, they'll have to dig us out, Min-ho declared. Similar preparations took place on every human world. On Europa, colonists moved into ice cities beneath the moon's frozen surface. On Titan, mining stations became fortress complexes protected by the moon's thick atmosphere. But the most important preparations were happening on Earth itself. Captain Gyu-ri Song commanded the orbital defense platforms that protected humanity's homeworld. Her weapons were powerful, but they were designed to stop asteroids and space debris, not an invasion fleet. We're upgrading everything, Gyu-ri reported to Defense Coordinator Young Sik. New particle cannons, fusion missiles, even some experimental weapons based on Velothi technology. Will it be enough? Against a normal attack, yes. But intelligence suggests the Krex are bringing planet-killer ships. Those can destroy worlds from outside our weapons range. Young Sik knew that Earth's survival depended on more than just military hardware. Humanity needed allies, and they needed them quickly. The solution came from an unexpected source. Commander Da-Yun Park, still with the fleet near Velethos, had been monitoring galactic communications. What she discovered changed everything. Admiral, you need to hear this, Da-Yun reported to So Young. We're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Other species are responding to our victory. The transmissions came from dozens of different civilizations. Some had been hiding from the Kreks for centuries. Others had been enslaved and were now considering rebellion. All of them wanted to know if the humans were really strong enough to challenge the Dominion. "This is ship singer with Ara of the Crystalline. Collective," came one message. "We offer our shield technology to the Deathworld warriors who saved the Velothi." "Hive Queen Mordak speaks for the deep swimmers," said another. "Our engineering fleets are yours to command." Admiral So Young realized that humanity's victory had done more than save the Velothi. It had given hope to species that had lived in fear for thousands of years. "Signal all responding civilizations," So Young ordered. "We're organizing a defensive alliance. Anyone willing to fight the Kreks is welcome." But organizing an alliance would take time, and time was running out. Long-range sensors detected the Kreks' grand fleet moving toward human space. The enemy force was enormous, easily the largest military expedition in galactic history. The first Kreks attack came at the mining colony of New Sol, a small settlement in the outer edge of human space. The colonists had retreated underground according to the Fortress Protocol, but they could only watch helplessly as Kreks' ships destroyed everything on the surface. Colony Commander Lee Sang-min sent desperate reports as the bombardment continued. "They're not trying to invade. They're trying to eliminate every trace of human presence." But the Kreks made a crucial mistake. They focused so intently on destroying the surface installations that they ignored the underground facilities. When their ships moved close to the planet to verify the destruction, the colonists struck back. Missiles erupted from hidden launchers, catching the Kreks ships by surprise. The aliens had expected no resistance from a supposedly dead world. Instead, they found themselves under attack from weapons they could not locate or target. "This is New Sol Control," Commander Lee broadcast on all frequencies. "The first Kreks attack has been repelled. We're still here, and we're still fighting." The Say message spread rapidly through human space and beyond. If a small mining colony could defeat a Kreks attack, perhaps the Dominion was not invincible after all. But Vexmorth learned from the failure. The next attacks would be different. The Kreks' assault on the agricultural world of New Busan came without warning. Planet-killer ships appeared at the edge of the system and immediately began charging their primary weapons. These massive devices could crack a planet's crust from millions of kilometers away. Governor Park Yu-jin had minutes to react. "All citizens to deep shelters immediately. This is not a drill." The planet killer's beam struck New Busan with a force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. The surface exploded in volcanic fury as tectonic plates shifted. Oceans boiled and continents cracked. But the human colonists survived. Their deep shelters had been built to withstand planet-cracking weapons. When the destruction ended, they emerged to find their world transformed but still habitable. "New Busan to all human forces," Governor Park broadcast. "We have survived a planet-killer attack. The Kreks cannot eliminate us easily." The pattern repeated across human space. The Kreks would attack with overwhelming force, apparently destroying entire colonies. But then human survivors would emerge from underground shelters, often stronger and more determined than before. Vexmorth grew, increasingly frustrated as reports poured in from the war front. Human resistance was actually growing stronger with each attack. Worse, other species were beginning to actively support the humans. "The Yathara have provided shield generators to human colonies," his intelligence chief reported. "The Mordaki are building new warships for the human fleet. Even slave species in our own territory are beginning to rebel." "How is this possible?" Vexmorth demanded. "We have the largest fleet in galactic history. We have weapons that..." Earth hung like a blue jewel in the darkness, beautiful and defiant as the largest invasion fleet in galactic history approached. Supreme Overlord Vexmorth commanded over 2,000 Kreks warships, including a dozen planet killers capable of cracking worlds. He was certain that humanity's homeworld would burn within hours. But as the Kreks' grand fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, they found something completely unexpected. Earth was not alone. Overlord, his sensor chief, reported with confusion. "I'm detecting multiple alien fleets in the system, species we don't recognize." Vexmorth studied the tactical display with growing alarm. Crystalline ships that sparkled like diamonds moved in perfect formation near Jupiter. Sleek aquatic vessels emerged from Europa's ice-covered oceans. Strange insectoid craft swarmed around Mars like living creatures. "How many ships?" Vexmorth demanded. At least 3,000, Overlord, maybe more. They're still arriving. For the first time in his long life, Vexmorth felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The humans had somehow convinced dozens of species to join their cause. The galaxy's oppressed civilizations had finally found the courage to stand together. Admiral Se-Rom Jeon stood on the bridge of the new flagship Terra United, watching the greatest fleet ever assembled take its positions. She had been chosen to command the Galactic Alliance because of her experience coordinating multi-species operations. Fleet status report, Se-Rom requested. Captain Boram Cho worked frantically at her tactical station, trying to coordinate the diverse technologies of their alien allies. Human fleet, 200 ships, Yathara crystal ships, 400 vessels with advanced shield technology, Mordaki deep swimmers, 300 engineering ships with superior armor, Fenari hive, fleets, 800 fast attack craft with coordinated tactics, and still more arriving? Yes, Admiral. We're receiving signals from species we've never contacted. They're coming from across the galaxy to join the fight. The Alliance fleet was a marvel of cooperation. Yathara crystal technology provided energy, shields that could absorb planet-killer beams. Mordaki engineering expertise had upgraded human weapons beyond their original capabilities. Fenari hive mind coordination allowed thousands of ships to move as one. But the most important advantage was something the Kreks could never understand: unity. Technical specialist Cho Yu-jin worked alongside Yathara engineers to integrate their shield generators with human power systems. The crystalline aliens communicated through harmonic frequencies that sounded like music. Your species brings harmony to chaos, shipsinger Liriana told Yu-jin through the translation device. We have waited 10,000 years for leaders who fight for others, not themselves. Similar cooperation was happening throughout the fleet. Mordaki aquatic engineers worked in water-filled chambers to build new ship components. Fenari warriors shared their collective tactical knowledge with human strategists. Dozens of other species contributed their unique abilities to the common cause. Captain Seung-ho Yoon commanded the human defense of Earth's orbital stations. His forces were outnumbered, but they had prepared every possible surprise for the Kreks, invaders. Remember, Seung-ho told his captains, we're not just defending Earth. We're defending the idea that different species can work together. If we lose here, the galaxy goes back to 10,000 years of fear. The first shots came from the Kreks planet killers, massive beams of energy that could destroy continents. But instead of striking Earth's surface, the weapons encountered Ithara, shield grids that dispersed the energy harmlessly into space. Impossible! Vexmorth raged. Nothing can stop planet killer weapons. Overlord, his science chief reported with growing panic. The enemy shields are absorbing our energy and converting it to power their own weapons. The Ithara had provided more than just defense. Their crystal technology could store massive amounts of energy and release it in controlled bursts. Every Kreks attack made the human alliance stronger. Admiral Se-Rom watched as the tactical situation developed. The Kreks were attacking in their traditional formation, expecting to overwhelm defenders with superior firepower, but they faced an enemy that fought with entirely different principles. All fleets implement Operation Galaxy Unity, Se-Rom ordered. The Alliance fleet moved like a living thing. Fenari attack craft swarmed Kreks ships from every direction, while Mordaki heavy cruisers provided supporting fire. Human vessels struck at weak points identified by Ithara sensor arrays. Every species contributed their strengths, while others covered their weaknesses. Captain Changmin Yu led his fighter squadrons in coordinated attacks with Fenari pilots. The insectoid aliens shared their thoughts through their hive mind, allowing perfect coordination between species that had never fought together before. Human friend Changmin, buzzed wing leader Zektari through the radio. We strike the command ship together. Your chaos tactics with our unity mind. Understood, wing leader. Let's show them what cooperation looks like. The combined fighter attack was devastating. Human pilots provided unpredictable individual actions, while Fenari squadrons moved with perfect group coordination. The Kreks interceptors could not counter both tactical approaches simultaneously, but the real battle was being fought by the capital ships. Commander Hyun-Soo Bae led the human battle group Soul's Vengeance in a desperate assault on the Kreks flagship itself. Target the Galactic Dominion, Hyun-Soo ordered. If we can disable their command ship, their whole fleet loses coordination. The Bayer Massive Krex flagship was protected by layers of shields and escort vessels. But Mordecai engineers had modified human torpedoes with phase shift technology that could pass through energy barriers. "Torpedoes away," reported Weapons Officer Park, Minjung. "Phase shift torpedoes are penetrating their shields." The modified weapons struck the Galactic Dominion directly, causing massive explosions throughout the ship's hull. But Vexmorth was not finished. The Supreme Overlord activated his ship's ultimate weapon. "Deploy the Galaxy Cleanser," he commanded. The Galaxy Cleanser was a weapon so terrible that even the Krex rarely used it. It created artificial black holes that consumed everything within light years, including the ships that fired it. Vexmorth was willing to destroy his own fleet to eliminate the human threat. But as the weapon charged, something unexpected happened. The Yathara ships began singing. Ship singer Lyriana's voice resonated through crystal arrays throughout the Alliance fleet. Other Yathara joined her song, creating harmonies that made their ships glow with inner light. The crystalline vessels moved into formation around the Krex flagship, their combined music creating a barrier of pure energy. "What are they doing?" Admiral Seiram asked. Technical specialist Boram monitored the energy readings with amazement. "They're creating a containment field. If the Galaxy Cleanser fires, the black hole will be trapped inside the barrier." The Yathara were sacrificing themselves to protect the galaxy. Their crystal ships would be destroyed when the weapon fired, but their containment field would prevent the artificial black hole from spreading. But the humans had learned something important from their alien allies. Sometimes the greatest victories came from working together. "All human ships form up on the Yathara vessels," Seiram ordered. "If they're willing to sacrifice themselves, we'll stand with them." "Admiral, that's suicide," Boram protested. "We'll all be destroyed." "Maybe. But we won't let our friends die alone." The human fleet moved to support the Yathara containment formation. Mordecai ships added their structural engineering to strengthen the barrier. Fenari vessels swarmed around the perimeter, ready to sacrifice themselves if the containment failed. Vexmorth watched in confusion as enemy fleets deliberately moved into the weapon's destruction zone. No logical species would willingly enter certain death. "Fire the Galaxy Cleanser," he commanded. The artificial black hole erupted from the Krex flagship with unimaginable fury. Space itself twisted as the weapon tried to consume everything within reach. But instead of spreading throughout the system, the black hole encountered the Allied containment barrier. Athera crystal ships shattered under the gravitational stress, their crews singing until the very end. Mordecai vessels strained their engineering, systems beyond breaking points. Fenari attack craft threw themselves into gaps in the barrier, their bodies becoming part of the containment field. But they held. The artificial black hole collapsed back on itself, taking the Galactic Dominion, and half the Krex fleet with it. Vexmorth's last transmission was a scream of rage as his ultimate weapon destroyed him instead of his enemies. In the aftermath, the surviving Alliance fleet found themselves masters of the solar system. The Krex Grand Fleet was broken, its survivors fleeing in panic toward their home territory. Admiral Seiram stood among the wreckage of the greatest battle in galactic history. Thousands of ships from dozens of species had died to protect Earth and the freedom it represented. But their sacrifice had changed everything. "Signal all surviving vessels," Seiram ordered. "The Krex Dominion is broken. The age of oppression is over." Reports poured in from across the galaxy as news of the victory spread. On worlds that had hidden in fear for millennia, oppressed species rose up against their Krex occupiers. Slave rebellions erupted on Dominion worlds. The Empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years, Kala,